The Xyloans, an advanced and peace-loving alien species, had spent centuries exploring the cosmos, seeking knowledge, understanding, and harmony with the countless species they encountered. Their ship, a crystalline vessel that floated with ease above the surface of planets, was an impressive feat of engineering. The Xyloans had designed their technology to be non-intrusive, blending in with the environment rather than overwhelming it. The ship's surface shimmered, almost translucent in the light of distant stars, reflecting the calm ethos of the species that inhabited it. For as long as they could remember, the Xyloans had adhered to a strict policy of non-aggression, with their primary goal being peaceful exploration. The beings had catalogued numerous planets and life forms, always choosing to observe from a distance rather than intervening. They saw themselves as custodians of knowledge, collectors of the histories of the universe, and proponents of understanding, not conquest. Earth, they had decided, was an ideal next destination. From their ship, the Xyloans had observed Earth for many years. They had intercepted human transmissions, piecing together the history of the planet's dominant species, the humans. They were intrigued by the diversity of life forms and ecosystems, and they had noted that humans appeared to have achieved a degree of control over their environment. Mammals, in particular, had caught the Xyloans' attention. By analyzing satellite imagery, the Xyloans concluded that Earth's mammals were largely peaceful, grazing herbivores. Even the predators, such as lions and wolves, seemed more like an organized part of the ecosystem rather than violent conquerors. Their research led them to one inevitable conclusion: Earth was an extraordinary opportunity. The Xyloans, in their quest to communicate with species across the universe, had never encountered a planet so ripe for engagement. It seemed that, for the most part, Earth's creatures existed in a delicate balance. It was precisely this harmony that made Earth the perfect place for the Xyloans to introduce themselves. The decision to send a team to Earth was met with enthusiasm among the Xyloans, especially among the scientists and diplomats. They had never engaged in direct contact with a species this unpredictable, but they were eager to bridge the gap. On the bridge of the Xyloan vessel, Ambassador Laquan addressed a gathering of researchers, diplomats, and specialists. His translucent skin glowed faintly under the soft lights of the ship, a beautiful hue that shifted from iridescent blues to soft purples. His long limbs and graceful posture gave him an otherworldly appearance. He was a being of intellect and poise, someone trusted to represent the Xyloans in their most delicate encounters. Earth presents an extraordinary opportunity, Laquan declared, his voice calm yet firm. Its mammals are curious creatures, gentle herbivores by and large, their diets rich in flora. We shall begin our diplomatic efforts by studying one of their native species up close. Excitement rippled through the room. The Xyloans prided themselves on their ability to communicate with alien life, to learn their ways and forge connections where others might see only obstacles. If all went well, this interaction with Earth's fauna could mark a historic moment for both species. Sval, a biologist whose research focused on Earth's ecosystems, leaned forward in her seat. Her neural appendages, extensions of her consciousness that allowed her to interface directly with data systems, twitched in anticipation. We've gathered enough preliminary data, Sval added, but we must proceed with caution. Earth's fauna may seem docile from a distance, but we know little of their true behavior when approached directly. Laquan nodded. Indeed, but we must take the first step. After all, it is the unknown that leads to discovery. The decision was made. The team would begin their exploration on Earth's African savanna, where the conditions seemed most favorable for an initial observation of the planet's fauna. The savanna, with its sprawling plains and vast herds of herbivores, appeared to be the ideal setting for a peaceful first contact. The savanna landing. The Xyloans' ship descended toward the surface of Earth with barely a sound. It moved with the quiet grace of a falling leaf, its metallic surface blending with the golden hues of the savanna. The ship's descent was almost imperceptible to the creatures below. As it touched down in a small clearing surrounded by thorny acacia trees and knee-high grasses, the ship emitted only a soft hum, like the gentle whisper of the wind. The landing pods hatch opened slowly, and the team stepped out. Laquan was the first to exit, his lithe form casting a long shadow over the tall grass. His translucent skin shimmered in the light of the late afternoon sun, blending with the surroundings in a way that made him appear almost ethereal. Beside him, Sval emerged, her neural appendages extending outward as if sensing the air itself. The two sentient drones that accompanied them hovered silently behind, scanning the environment with sensors designed to translate and interpret Earth's alien languages. The savanna stretched out before them, a sea of golden grasses dotted with the occasional cluster of acacia trees. To their left, a herd of zebras grazed peacefully. In the distance, a group of antelopes moved gracefully across the plain, their slender legs carrying them effortlessly over the terrain. Sval took a deep breath, her senses fully engaged in the new environment. Incredible. The atmosphere is rich with life, but it seems so peaceful. Laquan nodded, his sharp eyes taking in the scene. It's exactly as we expected. These creatures, these mammals, seem gentle, unthreatening. Their observations were interrupted by a sound that was both unexpected and curious, a cackling, almost musical noise that echoed across the savanna. Laquan turned, following the direction of the sound. There, under the shade of a large acacia tree, stood a solitary creature. It was unlike any other they had seen in their research. The creature was a hyena, its golden eyes gleaming in the fading light of the day. It was large and muscular, its fur patterned with spots that blended perfectly with the surrounding environment. Its ears were pricked forward, listening to the sounds of the alien visitors as they cautiously approached. The hyena's nose twitched, and it sniffed the air, sensing the strange new presence. "Look at that creature," Sval exclaimed, pointing toward the hyena, her voice tinged with excitement. Her neural appendages flared slightly as she scanned the creature with an array of sensors built into her suit. The data began flowing into her consciousness almost immediately. The hyena stood still, watching them intently, its golden eyes unblinking and calculating. The drones, hovering behind the team, quickly began their analysis. A soft, mechanical voice rang out in the quiet of the savanna. "Spotted fur pattern, quadrupedal, likely carnivorous based on dental structure," the drone intoned, offering a straightforward classification. "Species, Crocuta crocuta. Common name, hyena." Laquan took a step forward, his lithe frame moving with deliberate grace. His sharp eyes, always alert to the slightest detail, locked onto the creature as it shifted slightly. The hyena's muscles tensed in preparation to either flee or engage. Yet it made no move to attack. Instead, it remained rooted to its spot, watching the newcomers with a curiosity that mirrored the Xyloan's own fascination. "Fascinating," Laquan murmured. "This creature does not seem hostile. In fact, it appears to be studying us." Sval tilted her head, observing the hyena's behavior. "It seems to understand us on some level," she said thoughtfully. "Perhaps it recognizes that we do not pose a threat." Laquan nodded in agreement. "Let us attempt communication. It is always the first step in understanding a new species." Without further hesitation, Sval activated the translator device in her hand. It emitted a series of melodious hums and clicks, sounds designed to approximate the vocalizations of Earth's wildlife. The Xyloan's technology was advanced enough to mimic animal speech, using algorithms to generate sounds that would resonate with the neural pathways of a particular species. The translator's tones shifted and echoed in the air, a melodic attempt to engage the hyena. For a long moment, there was silence. The hyena's ears twitched as it absorbed the unfamiliar sounds, its gaze never wavering. Then, quite suddenly, the hyena threw its head back and let out a sound that startled the Xyloans, a high-pitched, cackling laugh. The sound was unsettling, almost human in its pitch and resonance, and it echoed across the open savanna like an ominous signal. Laquan stepped back, momentarily thrown off balance by the sound. "Is that laughter?" he asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Sval, equally taken aback, stood frozen for a moment. "It must be," she replied, though her voice held doubt. "But this is not a sound I expected. It is an odd form of communication for a creature that we presume to be a predator." Laquan considered this, his mind racing to process the new information. Perhaps it is a greeting or a sign of curiosity. This species may use laughter as a means of expressing both intelligence and an understanding of their environment. At first, the Xyloans tried to maintain a sense of calm, believing this cackling to be a form of playful interaction. They watched as the hyena took a few cautious steps closer, its body low to the ground, muscles rippling with controlled energy. Despite its somewhat comical laugh, the creature exuded an undeniable presence. There was something dangerous about it, something primal that could not be ignored. But when the hyena advanced, its eyes now focused intently on one of the drones, the Xyloans began to grow concerned. The creature sniffed the air, its nose twitching, as if assessing the situation. Then, with shocking speed, it lunged forward, snapping its powerful jaws around the drone, shattering the metallic shell in an instant. The drone let out a soft, electronic scream as the hyena bit into it with terrifying efficiency, its teeth crushing through metal and circuitry like it was nothing more than brittle bone. Sval shouted in alarm, her voice filled with urgency. "Retreat," she ordered, her eyes wide with disbelief as the hyena chewed through the drone's core with disturbing ease. But it was too late. The hyena had already dislodged one of the drone's essential components, and it began to chew through it with terrifying efficiency, each crunch and snap of its jaws sending vibrations through the ground beneath their feet. "Its bite force exceeds all projections," the remaining drone reported, its voice now tinged with an alarming edge. "Estimated pressure: over 1,100 pounds per square inch. It is capable of breaking through almost any material we have encountered." The Xyloan's peaceful mission had just taken a dramatic turn. Laquana's mind raced. This was not the peaceful, docile world they had expected. The hyena, in its laughter and ease of communication, had demonstrated something far more dangerous: raw, unbridled power. The hyena continued to tear into the drone with horrifying precision, its teeth sinking deeper with every bite. It seemed to savor the destruction, its cackling laughter rising in pitch as if amused by its own dominance. The Xyloans could hardly comprehend what was happening before their very eyes. The creature was not simply scavenging for food. It was relishing its role as the dominant force in this environment. Sval's voice trembled with anxiety. "We need to assess the situation, Laquan. This creature is not simply scavenging. It is attacking, possibly even viewing us as a threat or potential prey." Laquan's face, usually calm and serene, now betrayed the surprise and discomfort he felt. "We are ill-prepared for this," he admitted quietly. "The data we collected did not suggest such a powerful and unpredictable response from Earth's creatures." The hyena, undisturbed by the alien's apparent shock, began to approach the landing pod itself. Its eyes remained locked onto the ship's exterior, its large, powerful jaws clacking together as if testing the strength of the material. The Xyloans instinctively retreated into the ship, sealing the hatch just as the hyena's jaws made contact with the hull. The hyena's teeth sank into the pod's smooth surface, leaving behind a shallow dent as it clamped down with all its might. Inside the pod, Sval quickly interfaced with the ship's diagnostic systems, gathering data as rapidly as she could. "This creature," she said, her voice filled with disbelief, "is capable of crushing bone with ease. Its jaws are adapted for an incredible amount of force, far exceeding anything we've seen before." Laquan, his mind still processing the overwhelming events, looked to Sval. "What are we dealing with here? Is this creature more than we can handle?" Sval paused for a moment, her expression grim. "It appears we underestimated Earth's predators. This hyena, and perhaps others like it, possess extraordinary strength. Its laughter is likely a form of communication, but its intent is far from harmless. We may have stumbled upon something much more dangerous than we anticipated." Laquana's eyes narrowed. "We must reassess our approach. The planet's fauna is far more complex and dangerous than we ever imagined." The tension inside the pod was palpable. The hyena's laughter echoed faintly through the hull, a chilling reminder of the raw power that now surrounded the Xyloans. Laquan paced back and forth, his thoughts swirling. He had seen many strange and dangerous creatures throughout his travels, but nothing like this. His initial excitement about Earth, the idea of peaceful communication with gentle creatures, had swiftly evaporated. "What are we missing?" Laquan muttered to himself. "We've encountered an apex predator, but we expected herbivores." Sval sat at the control panel, her slender fingers moving over the holographic interface as she processed the data. "This species is a scavenger and a hunter," she said, her voice steady but filled with concern. "It possesses both a remarkable capacity for destruction and a keen sense of opportunism. Its jaws are capable of crushing bones, yes, but it also has the intelligence to target weaknesses in its prey." Laquan paused, his gaze shifting to the holographic images of the hyena's skull and teeth that floated in front of them. "The force of its bite is remarkable. But why did it laugh? Was it mocking us? Or is it simply part of its natural behavior?" Sval shook her head, her appendages twitching in frustration. "I can't say for certain. But that laugh, it's not the behavior of a simple scavenger. It has a level of self-awareness. Perhaps it's using humor as a form of intimidation, or to signal its dominance over us. We've only scratched the surface of its behavior. The drones, still functional but damaged, floated silently nearby, monitoring the hyena's movements outside. The second drone had been more fortunate, only losing some of its external sensors, but it still reported back the disturbing development. The hyena's pack had begun to gather. The creature that had initially approached them was no longer alone. One by one, additional hyenas appeared, emerging from the tall grasses with the same unsettling cackling laugh. Their golden eyes gleamed in the sunlight, their presence forming an almost menacing circle around the pod. "This is becoming a problem," Laquan said grimly, staring at the live feed from the drones. "The hyena appears to be rallying its pack." Sval raised an eyebrow, reviewing the data on the pod's console. "There's more than one of them, and they seem to be more intelligent than we first assumed. They're coordinating their movements. Their behavior is far more strategic than I would expect from a simple scavenger species." The drone's visual feeds showed the hyenas moving in synchrony, their actions almost choreographed as they surrounded the pod. Laquana's sharp eyes caught the minute details, the way their heads tilted in unison, the way they worked together to create a perimeter. The alien delegation was being encircled by the creatures, and there was little doubt in Laquana's mind that the hyenas were assessing them as potential prey. "We need to leave," Sval said urgently. "This situation is escalating far too quickly. We've overstayed our welcome, and I fear that we are now seen as a threat." Laquan hesitated, his thoughts torn between caution and scientific curiosity. The Xyloans had traveled across the galaxy, encountering species of all kinds, but never before had they encountered something so unpredictable, so fiercely territorial. The hyena's laughter, which had once seemed so amusing, now echoed like a warning in his ears. They had no way of knowing whether this was simply the beginning of something larger, an ambush or a warning. The hyenas began to grow bolder, circling the pod with greater confidence. One of the creatures, larger than the others, stepped closer to the pod's hull, sniffing the air with its nose twitching. Its gaze locked onto the ship, unblinking. For a moment, it appeared to be sizing up the vessel, as though trying to figure out how to breach its defenses. The hyena's sharp, predatory gaze pierced the thick metal of the pod as if it were no more than a thin membrane. "We're sitting ducks," Sval said, her voice a sharp contrast to her usual calm. "They're looking for any weakness they can exploit. We need to leave now or we risk being overwhelmed." Laquan turned to the controls, his mind made up. "Prepare for launch. Engage all systems. We're aborting this mission." As the pod's engines hummed to life, the hyenas outside reacted with a renewed urgency. The larger one lunged at the pod, its jaws snapping with a deafening crack as it tried to bite into the hull. The Xyloans could hear the sound of its teeth scraping against the metal, a terrible grinding noise that sent shivers through their bones. It was a reminder of the sheer power of the creatures they were dealing with. The pod's thrusters roared to life, lifting the vessel off the ground and into the sky. But as it ascended, the hyenas did not retreat. They chased after the pod, their cackling laughter fading into the distance as the Xyloans soared upward. From the control room, Sval watched the hyenas with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "How can something so seemingly innocuous be so dangerous?" she murmured. Laquan did not answer immediately, his focus on the flight controls as the pod rocketed away from the savannah. He was still processing the complexity of the situation. How a creature that had initially seemed so comical had turned out to be such a powerful force of nature. The Xyloans' understanding of Earth was being reshaped before their very eyes. As they broke through the atmosphere, leaving the planet's surface behind, Laquana's thoughts turned inward. The hyenas were a symbol of Earth's unpredictability, its wildness, its complexity. The Xyloans had come to this world with the hope of fostering peaceful relationships, but they had encountered an environment teeming with dangers, both seen and unseen. "This is no peaceful sanctuary," Laquan said quietly, his voice filled with a heavy sense of realization. "This is a planet where survival is a constant battle, and we are only beginning to understand the rules of the game." As the Xyloan pod ascended into the vast expanse of space, Earth rapidly receded into the distance. The blue and green orb, once so promising and full of potential, now appeared as little more than a distant, enigmatic jewel. The sounds of the hyenas' laughter were a fading memory, but the impression they had left on the Xyloans lingered, heavy and unsettling. Inside the pod, the mood was somber. The initial euphoria of discovery had evaporated, replaced by the disquieting realization that Earth was not the peaceful haven they had hoped for. Laquan sat in the pilot's seat, his translucent fingers lightly resting on the controls, staring at the fading image of the planet. His thoughts were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. They had arrived with the best intentions, eager to make peaceful contact, to study Earth's life forms and share their knowledge with the humans. But now they had witnessed a world where survival was brutal and unforgiving, where even the seemingly docile creatures were capable of incredible violence. Sval stood beside him, her neural appendages twitching as she reviewed the data collected from the surface. "Our initial hypothesis was so wrong," she said quietly. "The hyenas are not the anomaly we thought them to be. Earth's ecosystem is filled with creatures capable of unimaginable force." Laquan nodded grimly, his thoughts still on the hyenas. Their laughter, once a curious and light-hearted sound, had been transformed into an eerie symbol of the harsh reality of Earth. They were not simply predators, he mused aloud. They were survivors, adapted to the challenges of this planet in ways we can hardly comprehend. The drones, now back in the safety of the pod, hummed quietly, their systems recovering from the damage sustained on the surface. One of the drones projected a series of images, showing the hyenas' movements as they had encircled the pod. Their coordinated actions were no accident. It had been a carefully executed strategy, driven by an intelligence that the Xyloans had not expected from creatures they had once considered simple scavengers. The hyenas had worked together, using their wits as much as their strength to challenge the Xyloans' presence. "We underestimated them," Sval continued, her voice tinged with frustration. "We thought we were the superior intellect, but the hyenas were the ones who outsmarted us. They adapted to our presence in a matter of minutes." Laquan's gaze hardened, and he turned his attention to the larger view screen, which showed a distant view of the Earth's surface. "It's not just the hyenas. Earth is full of such creatures. Lions, crocodiles, wolves. All of them are far more than we expected. They have evolved in ways that are both brutal and brilliant." He paused, reflecting on the implications of their findings. "Perhaps we made a grave mistake by coming here with preconceived notions of Earth as a peaceful world. We assumed that all life would be docile, that we could approach it with the same methods that have worked on so many other planets. But Earth's fauna, it's a crucible. Survival is the only law." Sval nodded thoughtfully. "We assumed that humans were the dominant species, the ones who shaped the planet, but we've barely scratched the surface of their world. Earth is a place of constant struggle, a place where even the most innocent-looking species could turn out to be incredibly dangerous." There was a long silence as both Xyloans processed the weight of their conclusions. The peaceful diplomacy they had hoped to foster with Earth seemed an impossibility now, at least for the time being. The hyenas had shown them that the planet's natural order was one of unrelenting competition, where survival came at the cost of everything else. Laquan took a deep breath, his shoulders rising and falling in a slow, deliberate motion. "I still believe that we can learn from Earth. We cannot let our encounter with the hyenas cloud our judgment. If we want to understand this planet and its inhabitants, we must approach it with a new perspective. We must learn to respect the violence and unpredictability of Earth, and the resilience it breeds in its creatures." Sval looked at him with a mixture of admiration and doubt. "But how do we make contact now? How do we approach humans or any other species after what we've seen? The hyenas are just a small part of a much larger and more complex picture." Laquan's voice was firm, his resolve solidifying. "We observe. We study. We adapt. We must understand that Earth's balance is fragile, shaped by forces far beyond our control. We cannot change what we have seen, but we can learn from it. The hyenas are a reminder that survival is not just about strength. It's about adaptation, strategy, and resilience. If we wish to make contact with Earth's creatures, we must first understand the rules of their world." He paused, his gaze fixed on the distant stars outside the pod's windows. "The hyenas have shown us what Earth truly is. It is a place of contrasts, beauty and brutality, peace and violence, innocence and danger. But it is also a place where life, in all its forms, has found a way to thrive. That is what makes Earth so unique, and that is what makes it worth exploring." The Xyloan pod continued its journey away from Earth, the planet now a mere speck in the vastness of space. The hyenas, along with the countless other creatures they had encountered, remained fresh in Laquan's mind. They had not come to Earth with the intention of war, but they had encountered an environment where war was not just an occasional occurrence. It was a constant. Earth was not the peaceful paradise they had hoped for, but it was a world unlike any other they had ever encountered. As the pod drifted farther into the void, Laquan made a final entry into the mission log. Earth is a paradox, he wrote. It is both a haven and a battlefield, a place where survival is a constant struggle, but also a place where life has found a way to endure. We will return, but we must approach it with caution, respect, and above all, understanding. The Xyloans would never forget the encounter with the hyenas. It had shown them the true nature of Earth, and perhaps, more importantly, it had shown them the true nature of survival itself. In the end, it was not the strongest that would prevail. It was those who could adapt, who could evolve in the face of constant challenge. The hyenas had shown them that truth, in the most brutal and unmistakable way possible. And for the Xyloans, that was a lesson they would carry with them for the rest of their journeys through the stars.